Welcome back to This Week in Indies. Politics affects our everyday life, but how much does it affect our everyday storytelling? What context is best suited for when it comes to writing politics in fiction? Is it to utilize it as a satire, or a backdrop, or make it the catalyst for your world building? We will discuss. Then Joe Compton will be along with indie films you might enjoy if you're a fan of Mel Gibson's Braveheart. Then after we take a look ahead at what's going on now, we will try to find some common ground within the epilogue. So pull the lever and vote to join us for This Week in Indies. I'm Joe Compton, and I approve this message. Yes, hello everybody. Welcome to This Week in Indies. I am Joe Compton, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you for joining us. Do all the wonderful things you do to help us get seen and talked about, and we're going to wax poetic with a little bit of politico today. We're not going to get into fancy politics, but we are going to get into the politics of fiction a little bit and talk with this wonderful group that I have assembled here, and they all just got scrambled. So weird that it does that. I don't know why it does that. I will figure that out someday, I promise. There we go. All right, so we've got everybody in the right place. And hopefully you're in the right place by coming and joining us and talking. And let us know in the chat how you're doing. All right. That being said, let's just go around the room and say hello and tell everybody a little bit about yourselves. I'll start. Just go down the line. Tiffany, start us off, please.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Vega. I am the co-owner of Outsider Publishing Company. I write multi-genre from fantasy to psychological horror, and you can find it all at outsiderpublishingcompany.com.
Awesome. Mr. Hillman?
I'm Sam Hillman professionally, just call me Sean. I am a speculative fiction writer. I'm also occasional host here and on Goonies Hit the Dice and Zero Means You're Dead, our gaming RPG gaming shows. And I have a BA in political science, and I wrote once upon a time for about a year, I think, for politics.com. So I might know something about it.
I went with your game today because it's more like of apocalypto kind of feel,
Yeah, 6 and 8 is fantastic. There's a little bit of politics in that. So.
Yeah. The game turned kind of political when you guys played it the other day.
Oh yeah.
All right, Mr. Grimmemore, Rob, how are you, sir?
I am fantastic. My name is Rob Gilmore. I write under the pen name Rob Grimoire. I'm a multi-genre author. I've been published in a couple of different places. That link right there will tell you everything. I'm a musician as well. Love metal music. Slightly a sorcerer. I'm currently living in a dystopian future. You all are welcome to join me. And I am the assistant director over at Multiverse. By trade, I'm an LPN, and I work with kids.
And that little book right next to him just came out. It's a little novella that you all need to go check out.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, Miss Stewart, how are you?
I'm good. I'm Anita Stewart. I write fantasy, horror, steampunk, and soon paranormal cozy mystery under A.F. Stewart. I'm also the host of the Shadows and Ink podcast and the host of Trope or Not to Trope here on the Go Indie Now network.
Awesome. Nice to have you. And pulling back to back, Mr. Shankman, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm Ben Shankman, urban fantasy author and audiobook narrator. My series is The Devil You Know, and then I was here last week. Happy to be back.
We're happy to have you. All right. So I just want to say up front that we're not trying to expose our political natures at all here. That's not what this is about. This is about creating an environment with a political bend within our fiction or within fiction itself, So that being said, I kind of want to kind of explore how best do you utilize politics for your fiction? Is it satiristic? Is it a catalyst for whatever the plot might be? Is it backdrop for world building? How do you really utilize it the most? And just whoever wants to jump in.
Well, for me, a lot of it's world building because politics. A lot of my fantasy has a lot of politics built into the world building, but there's also plot points. Like, for instance, with my nautical trilogy, the second book had a lot of internal world politics playing out with plot points because there was a, a rivalry, a conflict with the 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 Navy, the official Navy in my world, and the God ship, the ship that's captained by my God character, and so it's like there was a particular naval captain who wanted to shut him down, basically, and so there was a lot of politics underneath the plot lines in that, and it kind of all culminated into this big court scene in the book, which was fun to write. So yeah, and but with the book I'm working on in Venice, set in Venice in 15th century, the politics are built into the world there because you cannot escape the politics.
Yeah.
Basically working for the government, the main character in that book. So yeah, there's a lot of politics in that book.
That and the politics coupled with the religion, I imagine, is
Oh
pretty
yeah,
prominent too, right?
yeah. Wait till you meet the feisty nun. She's great.
Who else wants to jump in there?
Go ahead.
Oh, thanks.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. So I mean, I think writing is inherently political, and that's one of the things is it's hard to separate personal politics from how it's going to affect a lot of different things in your story.
Mhm.
So, for example, in my first series, there's not explicit politics, but the characters all have ethics and morals related to the way that they see the world, which you can look at the characters and know what their politics are. And then if you, the reader, your politics don't play well with that, there's going to be opinions. But then, like, I have a new book that's going to be coming out later this year that I'm still working through, like, the details on. Like, it's all drafted and everything, but like an analog to some of our current challenges in this dystopian present are there on a smaller scale because I needed to write that somewhere. So, like, that book, the plot is inherently based on real world politics. So there's a lot. Like, sometimes it's world building, but sometimes it's also just we've got stuff we got to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both predecessors. I think that's what they said is accurate. I think we have to remember. I think everything, our bodies are political, right? Or politicized. Our thoughts are political or politicized. If you like video games and you like violent video games, you are politicized because there are people who think that destroys minds and society.
Mm-hmm.
And politics happens at a lot of different levels. It happens on a personal work level. Um, it happens at a greater corporate level. It happens obviously with your surrounding community and the greater community of whatever nation you live in. Um, and so it's difficult. And I think, like Ben was saying, it's difficult not to plant your flag, especially with characterization, right? More likely your characters are going to represent how you feel about various political ideas, whether they be work politics or government politics or world politics, right? So I think that's going to come out in your characters, um, even by making your characters apolitical. That's saying something, right? My characters aren't political. That tells us something about the politics of the writer. So how I use it generally is world building. and characterization, the subtle characterizations, how a person feels about another group of people, whether they say it in a neutral faction. I like people who play fantasy RPGs, or versus someone who says it in a majority faction. Oh, those nerds, right? Versus someone who embraces that lifestyle. It's like, oh yeah, I play fantasy RPGs every Friday night. So I think that both in the world building context and in characterization, that's primarily where I do my politics.
Yeah, even embracing the spitting at, right? If somebody says you're a nerd, you go, damn right I am.
Right, exactly.
How about for you, Rob? How do you utilize it?
I'm gonna piggyback off of what Sean said, and I'm just sitting here looking at the different covers that we have going on, and everybody here can pick out a section of their book where politics is hitting hard, and as pushing character, how they're driven to actually do what they need to do to complete the goals that they're trying to complete, and how it's affected the world around them. It is used for world building, like Sean says, and I use it for world building as well. And Sean's right. I mean, Sean hit a lot of the points that I was thinking about. How even your body's political, even my skin tone is political. I didn't want it to be. No one ever, I didn't wake up and say I'm going to be political today, or my sexual orientation, or any of that. No one ever said that was going to be political. But the government around it makes it in. It can make it in very satirical ways. I mean, we can laugh and we can joke about current situations that we have going on now, but at the same time, it's serious, and it really does drive all of the characters around our lives, and it drives the decisions that we make every day. So, I mean, if you're creating a strong government in whatever you're writing, or governing body, or a kingdom, or something that's gonna, or a boss. My boss is the devil, or a boss. You know, that person's going to have an agenda, and they're going to have the power to push that agenda onto everyone. And if you do it the right way, when you're writing different characters and their motivations, you can either come out with something that's really cool, or something that kind of flops because it's not as realistic, or you're not having the imagination to make it as realistic as you possibly can. It's got to kind of feel real in order to push the point. It's got to kind of feel like, and that goes into actually going back and looking at different political systems from beforehand.
As we lost Tiffany, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to the next question, and we'll get her back and have her answer it. But I'm curious, and I'll start with you, Rob, on this. I'm curious about, so I wrote this political thriller, which is sitting next to me, and what I found interesting was the exercise of that I couldn't just put one view out there. I had to put both views out there, and it was a very interesting exercise to me to kind of figure that out. And so I'm curious for all of you, how that played out too. How much did you have to kind of look at both views, both sides of the argument, or different sides of political spectrum, and how that affected how you wrote politics?
Well, so yeah, looking at both sides matters, especially when you're trying to explain the motivations of your characters, right?
Yeah.
In the Post Remains, it's in the Reconstruction era after the Civil War. So hell, politics are everywhere, and lack of
Yeah.
politics are everywhere. Lack of leadership's everywhere, and so it's complete chaos. And I try to personify that with Storm.
Uh-huh.
If I'm not telling the other side story of their quote unquote struggle, then the reader's not going to get it, right?
Yeah.
And I need to read what you actually wrote, so then I can see exactly how you're telling that story from both points. Because I'm really interested in that. And by the way, killer cover. Everyone here has killer covers, by the way. Yeah, I keep looking at them. They're beautiful. It's interesting because no one wants to hear the adversary story, right?
Right.
No one wants to hear. I don't want to hear what's going on. I don't want to hear how they're enjoying themselves at what's happening to people that things shouldn't be happening to. But I have to watch things like Fox News in the real world to understand what these people are believing. And
At least for 2 minutes.
At least for a few minutes to try to get some understanding to what's happening around me so that I'm informed. And you have to do the same with the reader. The reader has to, if your boss is the devil, Ben, then we have to know the devil's intentions, right? We have to know. I need to know if what the devil's seeing with his wide eyes is really for him the solution to the problem. I needed to know why Thanos wanted to end half of the universe. I needed to know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't know, then I wouldn't kind of feel. I needed to know why Killmonger wanted to commit the genocide that he wanted to commit, and the reason why, and the anger that pushed that. I mean, that's just good. That's just good. This is character development. That's good story development. I mean, if I don't know, then I'm going to be like, well, he's doing it for no reason. And then somebody's going to say, out of the bushes jumps a robot that saves the day. I don't need that. I don't need that. Give me the reasoning. Even though I don't want to hear it. And if you write it well, I might be like, oh, he's kind of right.
Yeah, that's the hard part of it, right? You when they make a good point, you go, oh shit, they made a good point. Tiffany, are you okay? It sounds like you're being attacked.
I had to move to the car, and so now it's raining, and
Okay.
now I'm using my cellular internet, not the internet inside. So
I know you're in the middle of nowhere, so I'm just making sure there's not a serial killer behind you or anything.
no, I would be writing a story about that, though. Yeah.
By the way, everybody, Miss Alicia says hello. Hello, Miss Alicia. Nice to see you. Yeah. I before we let everybody else jump in, I want to get Tiffany's thoughts on how she utilizes politics, because she dropped out before we could answer. She could answer that. So tell everybody a little bit about how you utilize it in your stories.
A lot of the stuff that I write has religious politics in it. The cover that is next to me, whatever side it is, that is politics in how people worship their gods, and how they different gods react to different people different ways. And I think it's a lot of world building. You have to have the political, hierarchy for world building in place. And without that, and if you're writing a story that is heavily influenced by how people act, there has to be some kind of political beliefs in the way they act.
Nice. All right. So, does everybody remember the question I just asked? I can repeat it if ever. Yeah, you probably didn't hear it, Tiffany. So, what I found it was interesting in writing my book, my political thriller, was that I had to look at everything from both sides. So, kind of how that affected me, and how it affected how I wrote that particular element of it, and trying to figure that out. And I'm just wondering if everybody went through that same process.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my politics are historical based, right? So I kind of have to look at all of the sides, because I need to know the entire history to recreate it, or to use it, or to do like that. And like with my Venice book, basically the main character and the antagonist are opposite sides of the same coin. So it's like you're getting the antagonist who's on the right side, or as right as you're going to get in that city. And the antagonist, who's not exactly wrong in her beliefs, but is her methods are very bad. I mean, she's way more ruthless than the main character, who's ruthless enough in his own way. So
if you think our world's crazy, 1500 Venice is batshit crazy.
Oh yeah. That's why I'm writing it. I love that stuff.
How about for you, Sean?
So I think how I sort of tackle the problem, when you study political politics, there's a certain dispassionate, not that obviously in the classroom there were plenty of passionate discussions, but it's kind of a dispassionate view, right? You try to take a historical view, you try to project into the future. But at the same time, I think as a writer and hopefully as a human being, when you're thinking about politics or writing about politics, you also have to understand that there's the dispassionate discussion of billions, right? These things will affect billions of people, but there's also a story at the bottom, right? Bottom, down the chain, which is very personal. And I think that while and you want to get that right, even as distasteful as it might be, or as unsympathetic as a character might be. Um, and I think that so it's not just a case of um, properly trying to understand the politics of those you may not agree with, but also understanding what it looks like at the very bottom of those beliefs, right? And often for beliefs that we, on both sides, are very tragic, right? The person the people who get affected the most on both sides of these issues, in some ways, are very tragic, although we may not sympathize with a lot of them. And I think you have to remember that too. So that's where the writer comes in, is taking those stories and um, humanizing may not be quite the best word, but putting a human face to those beliefs. And I think that's how you get that's how you create a villain like Killmonger, right? Who I was like one of my favorite villains. Where I think we could all, I think even if spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I think honestly, most of us are like, yeah, I kind of get where he's coming from, even if I don't agree with his methods, right? The message is correct, the methods are not. But how do but it's good writing and it's good understanding of society you live in that can create a character like that.
I also thought that was really the three dimensions that they created for Thanos. I thought was very interesting too, because you agree with him in a certain extent, but he does it so violently and so illfully, ignorantly that he's still a villain. Whereas Killmonger was kind of like right, and it was hard for him to be looked at as a villain. It took a lot of like courageousness from Black Panther to kind of bring that out in him, right, and kind of give that villain ish edge to it. Where Thanos was just like villainous. You just had to see through the veil of what he was actually saying to kind of see that he was very wrong in how he was approaching that, right?
And the thing about those two characters is Killmonger he really doesn't say I'm the good guy, right?
Yeah.
He just right, but he doesn't really think that, even though he feels justified. Whereas Thanos, even when he's doing terrible things, still thinks he's the good guy.
Yeah.
Right? I'm the hero of this world, this universe. I'm the one who's doing the right thing. Whereas Killmonger's like, I might not be the hero, but this is what I feel like needs to happen.
And for Killmonger, it was something that triggered him that did it. For Thanos, it was a belief that he was inherently indoctrinated to.
Yes, right.
So,
right yeah.
Everybody say hello to Deborah. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Sorry, Ben. Sorry to hijack your moment. Sorry.
No, my moment is hijacked by the 20-pound cat that decided he needed to be on my lap.
Again?
Yeah. So I'm, no pun intended, I'm going to be devil's advocate for a moment. And also just Rob, thank you for calling it out in the, like, talking about the, bosses and whatnot. The way that I portray Lucifer. So, like, for the record, in my book, like literally the boss is the devil. But the way that I portray that character, you would never question what my politics are. Mm-hmm. And the way that, like Tiffany was saying, the way that we portray religion is political because of the way that our society has politicized religion. But I will say, depending on what we're writing, and I think especially the more, I'll just say, let's use the word progressive. The more progressive our content is, the more inherently political it is. And I don't actually believe that you have to, you don't have to be kind to the antagonist. My book series gets queer as it goes, and I don't have to humanize people who feel like those rights are not human rights. So I can portray it as real as I need to, because it's the reality, the depth, and the you want your reader to know that you understand what you're talking about and where these characters are coming from.
Sure.
But there's no need to humanize that kind of character. And in fact, I think we get too caught up in trying to humanize a villain instead of just making them realistic and hateable. And I think that's something we should consider. Like, everyone loves an anti-hero, fine, but like, too many people, I think, love a lovable genocidal villain, when in fact we don't need to make a genocidal villain lovable. We just need to make them real.
I'm going to answer this question real quick, everybody. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, the name on it. But open panel, as far as if you want to be on screen, no. But if you want to speak to us, please do so in the chat. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Absolutely, 1000%. We'll put them on the screen. We'll talk about them. And you're welcome to comment on anything we're talking about. And I will put that on the screen as well, no matter what your view is. We're going to try and stay apolitical as far as our own personal views here. I mean, it is obviously very difficult, but and it'll seep through, and it already has a little bit. But so be respectful. But otherwise, I'm totally fine with anybody wanting to comment about how they view writing politics. It's a totally open discussion in that respect. So please, yes, contribute in the chat. We would love that. It also helps us get seen, by the way. So the more you guys type in the chat, the more I get, the more people get to see this, because the more YouTube realizes, hey, people want to talk about this. So okay. To get back on track a little bit here, I think everybody answered the question, right? The other interesting thing I thought about politics was the messiness of it, right? There is a lot of little nuances and little things that kind of set it askew, or you have to kind of put it ducks in a row. I mean, obviously for you, Anita, and you can start us off here. I mean, 1500 Venice, the amount of research and work you probably had to pull to kind of get every little bit of that out of whatever scary thing you were trying to do to us, I have to imagine was daunting at best.
Yeah, well, I was kind of familiar with Venice, because Renaissance Venice is a little bit of an obsession of mine to begin with. But yeah, because I mean, what my initial impressions of Venice were not what it was at all, because I assumed when I went into this that it was more like the other city-states of Italy, when in fact it's far more like a republic than the other city-states of Italy. And so I had to go deep dive into how their government worked. And I mean, and there's not a lot of the government, because I mean, he's sort of like, my main character, sort of like their fixer, assassin. So he's sort of working in the shadows and reporting to one particular council. So I'm not going a deep dive into that, but I had to do a deep dive to research on how it worked.
Sure.
And also figure out what the inside of the Doge's palace looked like. Anyway, but the interesting thing is that there's also, they basically had also like kind of like a secret police as well. So I had to do another deep dive into that because they actually focus in the later part of the book when he's on the run.
Yeah, I mean, political systems are so different too, right? I mean, you have parliament versus, republic, versus, Congress versus all these other different things too. So that nuances, I would imagine.
Yeah, and you gotta mix the religion in when you're doing 15th century Renaissance Venice as well,
yeah, sure.
because the church was a big political figure and a major influence in politics. So I incorporated the main church, who doesn't like the main character for reasons, and then I incorporated two smaller religious characters who are helping the main character. So I sort of showed both sides of the religious politics in that too.
Yes. Everybody say hello to Vanessa. Hello, Vanessa. It's okay, you're late. We love having you here no matter what time you can jump in. All right. How about for everybody else? How tricky was the politics and kind of getting it right, or kind of, the nuances of it?
For me, it was relatively easy. Reconstruction era, South, pretty cut and dry there. It was. I know what all elements play a part of what I needed to write there. It gets funny and weird whenever I'm trying to think about what's going to happen in the future. When I write things that are like cyberpunk-ish, because there are tropes that are used there that, the first trope is mega corporations are the government. And I'm just like, well, that's happening now, so it's not really a cyberpunk. It's lobbyists make moves in Washington, so that's not really cyberpunk. That's kind of like now. But I like to play with, what if one of these companies was like highly religious, and so like a highly religious mega conglomerate that's like not the Vatican or Chick-fil-A that takes over and runs things. So then I have to play with things like that, and that's what Anita was talking about, having to add religion into it. I do a lot of religious trauma horror stuff, or play in that space, because Mike Flanagan is like super good at it, and I really enjoyed Midnight Mass. It left a stain on my soul that I needed to write about. But just because there's horror there, right? There's horror in those spaces. There's love in politics. There is inherent danger in politics. There's all these little bits and pieces that, like I said, I mean, like everyone here, if you write them right, then they're really, really good. And if you don't, it just kind of fall flaccid. They don't work. I don't know whenever it comes to actually structure of different government, because like you said, we've had so many different types of governments, different types of fiefdoms, chiefs of tribes, all different little types of different things. And when you can go and research all of that stuff and kind of put it together, then you could have fun. I mean, I'm going to go back to Black Panther again. Their discussion about what to do about Killmonger and about different deaths, when you see them in council, it's like Parliament. It's like chief of staff, but it's also very tribal. It's also very old, different. It's even like the medieval, the kings having to come together and talk before possibly going to do battle. The king of France, all of those types of things. So when you grab a hold of bits and pieces of those things, you make them more relatable to other people, because there are people that like different parts of different governments, and there are different types of materials they like to read and media they like to consume.
Yeah, you'll be happy to know. I don't know if you've gone back and watched Friday night show, but Mike Flanagan was highly well represented on Friday night when we talked.
I think Mike Flanagan's name is in every room all the time. It's just like no one's not going to talk about Mike Flanagan. And I want to actually have that same energy for the Cronenbergs, because they need to be talked about in all the rooms as well. But yeah.
He's a little out there for me, but yeah, I understand.
completely out there. But my brain is out there as well. It's completely out there. Those concepts, those are very alien and foreign to me. And you look at how, if you watch Possessor by Brandon, a government plays a role in that, and it's really, really weird.
Yeah,
they really have to control the situation that's happening in those films. And oh my God, craziness ensues as always with the government, right?
A little too much body horror for me. I'm just not a body horror guy.
I feel you.
I'm sorry, everybody.
No, so my politics are all modern. So like the research required is minimal to an extent. Like I have plot points that I have to dig into a little bit, but I think I do more big room politics than I do like nitty gritty. So in my case, it's more, I maybe ironically, a lot of us on this panel have to do a lot more research into like religion and religious culture than we do politics. Because that's really like the niche that I've made for myself is really my books tend to focus on various cultures, mythology, and religion. Which again dives into politics to an extent, but like all of the political stuff is modern, and so I kind of take advantage of what's out there.
Yeah, if you can't tell from my book, We the Moral Majority, it is about the moral majority uprising in the 80s that happened with politics in the Republican Party, especially. But the moral majority, it's the beginning, where my book takes place is the beginning of that culture and everything like that. So yeah, I had to do a lot of research on even though I grew up during that time and during the Reagan time, but there was a lot of that I had to do. You're very right about that. Sean, Tiffany, you guys want to jump in?
I was going to say, since we write fantasy, it can be as messy or unmessy as you want it to be. If you are taking like politics today and writing it in your stories, it's obviously a lot more messy. Trying to write different political views, because there's so many. You have right, left, you have socialists, you have communists. It can get messy, but the good thing with writing fiction is you can make it as simplistic as you want it to be.
Sure. And for those of you coming in late, no, Tiffany's not on a gun range. She's in her car and it's raining. Sean, you want to jump in? And then
Sure.
I'll get to the comments.
Sure. So briefly, I'm going to sound like a bit of a Marxist, which I'm not, but having studied as I said, right, you study all these things. The mechanisms of, obviously this is my opinion, I'm not speaking for everybody on here. The mechanisms of politics are really affectation, sorry to say. You could have an absolutely really enlightened monarch who frees serfs, and we'll get that in a second, and treats everybody else. But typically what you have is at the top you have the personality, whoever the personality is. We're all aware in American politics who the current personality is. In the middle, you have the people with the means of production. You have the bureaucracy, and at the bottom you have the people who are doing the actual work. So that's really how any group works. You have the people who are doing the work. You have the people who are providing the money to do the work. You have the people who are organizing the work. In the term bureaucracy, they're either they're also making it work, but at the same time they're telling people why they're wrong. And then you have the person at the top who's may be doing some work depending on how skilled they are, but mostly they're the personality that drives the engine, right? Republic, monarchy, anarchy, these are all interesting forms, but they're really affectations, right? So I say all that to basically to say, yes, obviously, any particular given situation where you're writing politics, these are things you need to be aware of, because even though you might be writing about the Republic of Venice, there are personalities involved, right? There's the people at the bottom doing the work. There's the people the main characters who are part of the bureaucracy, I would imagine, is where you would place that main character. I mean, I haven't read the book yet, so I can't say.
Well, no one's read the book yet. It's not out.
Yeah. And so really it's about the people making it work, right? Yeah. Those are the most important. That's the most important aspect of, I think, in politics, is who are the people that make this politics, whether it be an HOA or a world government. Who are the people who are actually making it work, and where are they getting their inspiration? Ben says religion, right? religion is both a inspiration for some, but is also a tool. And the co-opting of belief, which you can go any belief you wish, any formal and informal religion you wish, and see where the powers that be co-opt religion for their purposes. And they use it, unfortunately, most of the time to oppress individuals who they often just seemingly at random pick a group of people like, nah, I don't like these people, so we're going to use our instrument to oppress them. So I think it's for me, it's important to understand how everything really works, as opposed, but not, I mean, the affectations are still important, right? If it's a republic, if it's the United States, if it's the UK, if it's Nigeria, the actual government is important, right? That form that it takes is important, but somewhat less important than the actual power players. So,
yeah, and along the lines, the chat kind of hums that note as well. As Vanessa says, I note that politics isn't about government exclusively. Politics happens whenever a group of people come together. Government is politics, but politics isn't only government. And then Deborah says, Vanessa, I think that's one of the lessons in Dr. Seuss's Butter Battle book, done brilliantly for children. And Rob says 100% Vanessa. And then Vanessa says, oh, I've never seen that one. So then now they're getting book recommendations to everybody. Highly recommend. Very late. Nice to see you, Jenna. Welcome. And then Vanessa says, I always found politics fascinating. I mean, it was part of my dual major in college, but more the politics of people rather than the mechanisms of government. So.
Well, that's like what we said before. We are individually political.
Yeah, and you can't avoid it, right? You can't escape.
Somebody's right. Yeah, you can't avoid that.
You know, another thing you can't avoid every week on our show. Thank you for that segue. Is an indie connection, and today I get the privilege of presenting an indie connection, as I do, at least once a month here at Go Indie Now. I am doing the indie film connection, and again, political bend on this, but this is the indie film connection if you're a fan of the movie by Mel Gibson called Braveheart, and enjoy that, and then we'll be back to talk more about writing politics. Long video. Here we go. This one. Hello, everybody. Joe Compton here, and I have another indie film connection. And this time I have indie films you might enjoy if you're a fan of Braveheart by Mel Gibson. The first indie film I have for you is kind of the bizarro Superman to Braveheart. It is called Downfall, a film by Oliver Hirschberg. In April of 1945, Germany stands at the brink of defeat, with the Russian army closing in from the east and the Allied Expeditionary Force attacking from the west. In Berlin, a capital of the Third Reich, Adolf Hitler proclaims that Germany will still achieve victory and orders his generals and advisors to fight to the last man. When the end finally does come and Hitler lies dead by his own hand, what is left of his military must find a way to end the killing that is the Battle of Berlin and lay down their arms in surrender. This film is available for free right now on Tubi. The next indie film I have for you is The Wind That Shakes the Barley by Ken Loach. In the 1920s Ireland, young Dr. Damien O'Donovan prepares to depart for a new job in a London hospital. As he says his goodbyes at a friend's farm, British black and tans arrive, and the young man is killed. Damien joins his brother Teddy in the Irish Republican Army, but political events are soon set in motion that tear the brothers apart. This movie is available on Prime Video right now. The third indie film I have for you is A Midnight Clear by Keith Gordon. In the winter of 1944, American soldiers led by Will Knott are assigned to capture a small squad of German soldiers posted in France's Ardennes forest. Tired of war, the Americans have already lost half their division and discover that their German enemy is equally unwilling to fight. With Jewish soldiers Dan Scherzer interpreting, the Germans and the Americans agree on a plan that will let the former surrender without violence. But then, tragedy strikes. This movie is available for free on Tubi. And the last indie film I have for you is certainly not the least, and in fact, it is my favorite film of all time. It is Henry V by Kenneth Branagh. In this gritty screen adaptation of Shakespeare's play about a heroic and ruthless king, Henry V of England determines to lay down his claim to the Kingdom of France. Henry's self-doubt and his diminished morale of his army stand in the way of victory that would unite the two countries and provide Henry with a queen. However, his sheer determination and impassioned speeches ready his men for the bloodiest of battles at Agincourt. This movie is available for free at Pluto TV. That'll do it for this episode of the Indie Film Connection. We'll see you again soon. Bye for now. There you go. Some great films. If you're a fan or not a fan of Braveheart, and I'm going to move everybody back around again. Jesus. Stupid. StreamYard. All right, there we go. Now everybody's back in place. All right, yeah. So hopefully you check those movies out. Most of them are free where you can get them, and like I said, I have the links in there in the description, so you can go and check out those films directly at the link. Most of them are free. The only one that's not free is the Wind that Shakes the Barley. That one you have to register at some site or something. I don't know, but otherwise the other three were relatively free. I mean, you have to get to Pluto TV, but the link will take you right to the movie. So, all right. Anyway, there's a lot of chatter going on in the chat, and so Deborah Parmalee says, I read an article by a psychologist which says there are 259 ways to load a dishwasher, yet people insist there's only one right way. I keep that in mind when anyone says there are two sides. Vanessa says you can avoid politics if you got enough privilege. If you're marginalized, there's no way to avoid politics. But even in the privileged, they can opt out of being political, cannot opt out of being affected by politics. And Rob says, yep, it sucks being a political object. And Vanessa says, for real. Yes, absolutely. 1000%. All right. I'm going to skip the epilogue because I think that we're having such a great conversation. I don't really have to ask you rapid fire questions or anything like that, or tease you with anything, or torture you with anything as well. But I am curious though, if in doing research, or I mean, we're probably all very stringent in who we are and how what we believe in, right? But I'm wondering if anything that you've researched or anything that you've come across in creating politicalness in your fiction has made you pause or think about who you are a little bit. Whoever wants to jump in.
No.
I'll go. Because a lot of mine is political and religion, and doing a lot of religious research and how the hierarchy is. It really questioned my the way that my faith was when I first started doing research. And I won't go into my belief or anything like that, but it did make me question how I saw organized religion a lot.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that since a lot of my recent books are featuring female protagonists, I've had to kind of delve into gender politics, especially hysterical gender politics. And that's kind of altered my views a little bit, because so much of the female contributions to history have been just suppressed, that there's a lot more out there that most people don't know about, don't care about even. So I've had my eyes opened a little bit there, especially about nuns.
Yeah, I just to elaborate on my swift no. It's not that research and learning things about politics, whether it's personal politics, gender politics, modern politics. It's not that it can't change a person. I think maybe I'll just say my feelings only change in one direction. and you know, the thing that I think,
Well, it sounds like it reaffirmed for you.
well, no, it pushes me further, like further in one direction. Again, it's
Gotcha.
like the more you learn about how politics is generally about oppression and control, the more, frankly, I hope it radicalizes you in a positive way.
Yeah, that makes sense. How for you, Rob?
That's a complex question. Because I mean, literally, I've been in situations where I've been doing research about different religious aspects, and it's just like, okay, well, I didn't kind of know that that was something that they practice, especially religions from a coast where my ancestors came from. It makes me rethink about, you know, when I just discovered. Sorry, that's thunder, and we're having storms here. When I discovered that when I was younger, and I discovered how, you know, learning about the slave trade and everything, it made me think twice about religion that was placed at my doorstep. You know, it's like, well, those people are there and they don't practice the same religion, and they're alive and they've been thriving for thousands of years before this country was even created. And, you know, the how young this country is and how young its government is extremely interesting compared to the rest of the world. And decisions that people have to make in order to survive in this particular government, even 20, 30, 40 years ago, and 20 years ago would make me 20, which is weird. But even that, you know, that far, I mean, that many years ago, like soldiers who decided to not come back home from the war that were black because they were treated better in Europe. You know, it's like, well, how did that bloodline continue there, and those stories that happened there? But it always makes me rethink about, well, what would I do if I was in that position, if I was in that situation, or the black scientists who were recruited by Russia, you know, back in the day. I mean, they created propaganda films to say, hey, look, we're not racist. Please come on over and use your brilliant brains to create these things and objects and constructs for us. Makes me think about, well, what were they thinking about? How did they survive? I mean, it was about survival for a lot of these people. And we can even get down to the nitty gritty and talk about people who were working for slave masters that were black on horses, that were treated better, that were fed better. What kind of decision did this person have to make when they were even born a slave? You know what I mean? Thinking about that kind of stuff it puts me in a different position when it comes to trying to survive in this current political climate, right?
Sure.
Trying to figure out what things that I have to do. It gets into complexities of code switching. It gets into complexities of how you have to present yourself, which it really kind of made me, like Ben said, kind of, you know, skew more to the other side. So, you know, I'm not going to do this. Well, fuck that. I'm not going to, excuse my language, but, you know, screw that. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to give in to this societal crap, because if I do, then I'm not a part of the change, and I'm a part of the problem. You know, I need to be able to express myself openly and freely as a human being, and not as a political object, like I said before. Because while, you know, the government kind of makes our body and our things and our lives and our interests political, we're not political. We're human beings. We're going to always remember that we're human beings, and the people on the other side are also human beings too, somehow. But we have to remember that as well, especially when we get into little arguments and tiffs and stuff like that. It's complex writing, and writing's hard, and writing's cathartic, and it makes you discover so many things about yourself at the end of the day. And sometimes it can be confusing, but I'm here for the ride, man. I'm here for the ride.
I love how the thunder punctuated Rob's entire.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That was perfect.
Could have wrote it better, right, Rob?
You really, yeah. So a couple things. I think number one, if you have a ounce of empathy and humanity as you examine the world around you and the past historically, you do recognize your privilege. So, I mean, I recognize that even though I may not be as privileged as some people think um, I am more privileged than others, and I think you need to recognize that. And when you write, you need to write with that in mind, right? Do not steal other people's trauma and conflicts for your own, but to represent them the best way you can, right? Obviously, using people who've been through that consensually to read your work, right? But the second thing is, and this is the hard thing, I remember telling someone, and this is going to may make some people feel uncomfortable, on January 6th, so it's 5 years ago, 4 years ago. Obviously, I found the insurrection abhorrent, and it was an insurrection. I will stand on that. I'm the expert. It's an insurrection, trust me. Um, and but I said to some people, more than one group of people, had the election gone the other way, could that have been you? And they said, no, I would never do that. But I think what people need to remember is there's the politics of our intention, right? To be progressive, to be empathetic, to be human, to create a world where everyone wants to live in, right? And then there's the politics of our actions. And if you look at actions, how different are the various sides in any political conflict? If everyone resorts to blackmail and violence and war and degradation and bullying, then how different are we? And now, I'm not saying we're not different. I'm not saying that, because I think there is definitely a distinction that needs to be made. But when it comes to action and instrumentation, that's where we always need to to be aware of that. Often, all sides of a given conflict, because like someone mentioned, there's more always known to. All sides of a given conflict often resort to the same terrible methods, and sometimes they have to. World War II, we had to, or the Allies had to do some horrific things to defeat the Axis. But they still did these horrific, terrible things. And I think that's the second thing is there's the idealized idea of our politics, and then there's the actual politics. So the Soviet Union is a great example. Communism is not necessarily inherent, even though it calls for the downfall of decay system, society. It's not necessarily an inherently violent system, and yet almost every single nation, with Mongolia being an exception, I think, almost every single nation who's embraced communism has embraced the police state and the all the worst possible. Not that other countries haven't, right? I'm just using those as an example. So, yeah, understand. To sum it all up, understand your privilege, but also understand the fact that the method of how you gain your, of how characters gain their political victory is as important as well, or not, or defeat is important as well, because the methodology is often very much the same.
World War II is a good example of atrocity in terms of being on one side or the other, because you had in this country you had internment camps for Japanese Americans, so the atrocity wasn't just happening on one side. There was other atrocity happening everywhere. So that's a great example. I mean, that's a great thought, Sean. I like that a lot.
Joe,
go ahead, Rob.
I just wanted to say something that you actually made me realize. It's like we did have internment camps for Japanese Americans, but then the Madison Square Garden was like filled with American Nazi Party sympathizers.
Yeah.
So there's that whole juxtaposition right there. It's kind of crazy. I didn't even think about that. It just kind of hit me like a lightning bolt. Seriously, that's insane.
There's so many different factions and so many offshoots of that happening after the fact too. But yeah, there's two sides to evil in a lot of respects. It's not always there's not always as much as Ben you want to write. There's a good guy and a bad guy. There's not always. There's a lot more shades of gray sometimes too. Especially in reality.
Can I just comment on that real quick?
Yeah.
So yes, there are, but I think again we give too much credit to actual evil for having a side.
Yeah.
I'm Jewish. I have never felt as unsafe being Jewish in the United States as I have in the past, 8 years plus, like for very obvious reasons, like Nazis in Madison Square Garden. Like there are things that we do not need to accept the both sidesism of and be very clear on that.
Yeah. No. And I'm not saying, we should, celebrate those things. I'm just saying we need to point them out. I think if you're telling a story, that needs to be part of the story. We can't always tell the heroic story of what happened during that time if you're not labeling atrocities as well, right? So.
Absolutely. It's everyone needs to continue to be aware of the paradox of tolerance, right? When it comes to this.
More of the chat going on. Vanessa says, more I see how people both oppressed and their cultures completely eradicated. I become more of the mind that we need to stop competitive culture and shift to collaborative culture. Deborah says, I think about things like why if number 258 to load the dishwasher was the way that everyone would stop fighting over it and bring peace. Only two ways is a failure of imagination. Rob says we got to recognize it, Sean, 100%. And then religion, oppression, white supremacy, patriarchy, unregulated capitalism are all tangled together and so deeply rooted in Western, especially U.S. society. They reinforce each other. Communism is great on paper, but it doesn't work IRL in real life because humans are corruptible. It's exactly the same for capitalism. And it's all crazy and multifaceted. Absolutely, 1,000%. So I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to call you out either. I was just saying,
I didn't think you did. I just, again, it's a note that I didn't want to leave hanging.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I agree 100% with what Ben said, right? Even if you're showing both sides, you really need to take a side. You need to show that evil is evil. I mean, you need to come down on that, right? Like no matter how
you can't bend it to a sympathetic ear, right? That's
right.
I'll go back to Killmonger. Like, even though we were just like, oh shit, he's doing some things for some reasons that we understand and we sympathize with, he was still bad.
Yeah.
He was still trying to like kill a whole bunch of people and turn government. I mean, it would have hurt. He was privileged in a sense. He became king of a very powerful kingdom. He had power. And he was going to lord that power over everyone to bend them to his rule. That's not right. Inherently, it's not right. So if you're a good person, you're going to fight against that immediately. And you said the best way that you know how.
And you said astutely that he even recognizes he's bad, right?
Absolutely.
So
he does. He's like, I'll kill anybody and do what I need to do to get past the obstacles so I can get the power that I need so I can kill more people.
Okay, ultimately, has there been anything tricky that you've had to navigate within the politics of fiction that you struggle with, or is there something like you've kind of just dismissed or waned because it just got too crazy, or it just got too complicated, or it just didn't work for the story you were telling? I mean, has that happened to you all in terms of like, the political aspects of writing?
Yeah, for me, recently, when I was writing Fairy Tales and Nightmares, I was retelling the Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves story. And since they're all female, all the stories are female characters, I was using the slave character from Ali Baba. And when I was researching it originally, I was looking up slavery in Arab society, and it's just, I wasn't sure how to do that and, keep it politically uncontroversial. Plus, she's an LGBTQ character in the story. It turns out, apparently, because she told me this, and so that was kind of tricky with Arab society, and I was just like, no, I don't think I'm capable of handling this. So I just backed the timeline up to Roman society, and everything just fell into place because it was a lot easier to deal with Roman slavery, LGBTQ in Roman society. So it worked a lot better for me without going into controversy and maybe stepping on toes.
I think my take on it is, maybe I'm going to take it up a level from in the stories to just kind of the community, in that I think I've had to accept that there's just going to be people that don't like what I write because of politics. And that's okay. But also, like, I think to there's some indie authors have an expectation that their politics don't matter when it comes to their work, and they've kind of put that out into the world. Like, I don't know if anyone follows the self-published sci-fi contest at a bunch of these like indie groups. There's been a lot of backlash about some of the personal politics of characters and how it influenced their stories in ways that were, I think, personally unacceptable. So, like, I fall on the side of the runners of the contest in making the choices that they made. But then there are whole swaths of the indie community that are, effectively calling it woke nonsense. And like, so it's, in some ways, authors kind of have to ignore the fact that politics exists and write, like, unless you're a bad person. If you're a bad person and you're writing books, maybe pay attention to what you're doing. But like, if you have that ounce of empathy, like we were talking about before, like, just accept that people aren't going to like some of what you write because your politics isn't going to match theirs.
Yeah, I 100% agree with what Ben just said. I think a great example, another good example, not necessarily an indie one, although it does go into indie circles too, is military sci-fi. Military sci-fi, even though ironically I don't think Heinlein as much falls into this group, but that he's like the example. But yeah, military sci-fi has a certain aesthetic to it. If you don't fit in that aesthetic, military, the boisterous military SF people don't want to read it, regardless, right? And yeah, I think if you want, like, I write that, and my politics are not the same as David Weber's. They're not the same as other, certainly not like a John Ringo. My politics are way different than that. But I'm going to write it anyway, and you have to accept that there's a certain degree of that audience, that built-in audience, is not like Ben said, oh, this must be woke nonsense. Well, then if you feel like it's woke nonsense, that's up to you. But yeah, that's one example where I personally see, and I'm not worried about it, right? I feel like I'll have an audience regardless. If it's an audience of 10 is of 10 people who aren't knuckleheads is better than an audience of 1 million that are. So
the great thing about those I'm gonna say idiots is that they call themselves out and they point to themselves, right? And you can go, okay, yeah, you're not my audience. You're not who I'm targeting my book for anyway. So go away. Yeah, let my audience come in.
Absolutely.
Well, Joe, I was born and raised in the Wish a Motherfucker Woods. All of my characters are just, they are who they are, and they're unapologetically that.
Love it.
Plot twist. Some of them are brown people. There are women. There are people that have different ethnic backgrounds and sexual orientations and identities in my characters, and some of them are identity. They don't have an identity, which is interesting. But I don't really understand why we even have to have a discussion like that when it comes to we write what we write. And like Ben said, and like Sean said, like we have an audience for the things that we write. Sometimes, by the way, breathing these days is woke nonsense. So, I mean that goes there, and in terms of when it comes to those people who look at your work and say, "Well, I don't think this is for me," I am very happy that you understand that you at least understand that this is not for you. And I'm not going to tell you to, hey, go read a book or go get educated, because that's your personal business. I'm not going to do that work for you. I've done enough of that work over my life to tell people, hey, you should really look up this about slavery, or about the prison industrial complex, or about any of this kind of stuff. I'm done with that. I'm too old and I want to write. And wasting my time trying to explain or help someone or hold their hand to explain to them that they need to see that this is not right or this is wrong. If you don't want to read the book, don't read it. That's cool. If you do want to buy it, hate read it, and then leave a bad review, you purchased it and you hate read it. And I hope that whenever you're like on your deathbed, you think about this book and go, "Oh my God, it was right," and then you go. That'd be great for me. I would love that, because it's going to be living
Either way,
I
I got your 76 cents. So
That's right. That's right. I got your change. I got your pocket change. I can maybe afford half a coffee, and I'm gonna live in your head. My woke nonsense is gonna live in your head rent free for the rest of eternity. So I mean, you read the words. It's in your brain somewhere, digging into your. That's a good story. Like that's a really good story idea. Okay, I'm gonna have to park that. But yeah, you read it, and it's digging into your mind, and it is what it is at that point. Keep writing whatever you want to write in the best way you want to write, and people will pick sides. They will say what's good, they will say what's inherently bad, they will say what's inherently evil, and they will not read what you write, or they will. So it is what it is. It's a coin flip. Like I said before, it doesn't feel good being a political object or having anything that you do or write politicized. But this particular book that I wrote is politicized. It is. I mean, it's the Reconstruction era, Civil War. That's political. So I mean, do what you're gonna do. Just don't be an asshole.
there's a great scene in the show Newsroom, when Charlie Skinner's getting challenged by the network, played by Jane Fonda, the head of the network, and she is trying to convince him to tone down their rhetoric, because they're going further left and left and left, and because they're reporting news, and she mentions to him about how, some would argue you're going on a witch hunt, and he replies, well, some would argue there are witches out there, so just thought that was apropos of what we were talking about.
Highly recommend Newsroom, by the way, if you please.
Yes, well, anything Aaron Sorkin writes, I highly recommend for sure. Absolutely, 1,000%. One of those guys that you look at and you go, how the fuck did he write that, and why is he in my brain? Right? It's amazing. He's absolutely just stellar at what he does. So the chat, we'll get through the chat here, and it says all writers need to take a side and show evil for what it is. Jenna says. Deborah says, as a reader, if a book is too didactic, I will stop reading it, whether I agree with the site or not. Don't hit me over the head with it. And then Vanessa says, agree 100%, Deborah. And Vanessa says, I think we're in a time where many readers do want to know the politics of their authors, especially readers in marginalized communities. Yeah, especially since we've been surprised by a couple authors' stands lately, right? So Vanessa says, if someone uses the term woke nonsense, I know they don't understand what woke really means and what it actually means and where it came from. And if people want to read my stuff, I'll buy a small Coke. Thanks. Yep, absolutely, 1,000%. Aaron Sorkin, love. Yeah, absolutely. Throughout humanity's history, people have learned through stories. Writing a story is a person's story could change the world. Absolutely, 1,000%. All right. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, guys. And I know we could go on for another 45 to an hour, but I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I promised I would keep you. So thank you so much for doing this and talking about this. And it's awesome. kitty cat on the screen, everybody. The stream is complete. And Vanessa says, what a great panel. Thanks, everyone. So let's go around the room and tell everybody where you can find all these wonderful people, get their books, and yes, contribute to the woke nonsense out there. And let's all buy a small Coke with that. So Ben, tell everybody where they can find you, sir.
All right. So you can find me at benshankman.com. My books are on Amazon, and also the first audiobook's out, second one's about to come out. And yeah, please support my woke nonsense.
Awesome. All right. And Stuart?
Okay, you can find me at afstewart.ca and look this July for the new paranormal cozy mystery, Murder, Magic, and Maple Fudge.
Ooh, great title. Love it. All right, Rob?
Let me unmute myself here. You can find me here in the wishing motherfucker woods, or you can find me online under Rob Grimoire anywhere, Blue Sky, Instagram, not X, Facebook, and I have everything there. You can get the Post Remains on Amazon right now, Kindle for $1.99, and the physical book for $3.99. I'm also featured in a book called Space Funk by MV Media. I'm featured in a book called Dark Spores by Chrome Girls Press, and Mocha Memoirs Press has a book called A Crack in the Code, where I have a poem in it. But I'm everywhere at Rob Grimoire. Please find me. Let's talk.
I am currently reading Space Funk. That review will come out soon. I have actually read Mr. Grimoire's story. It's very, very good. And Dark Spores is an excellent story he has in there too. And I actually did do a review for that collection, so you can check that out too. I'm sorry, Rob, you want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sean?
Yep, you can find me at thewickedboys.com. It's where I blog. I've blogged in a while, but still, it's relevant. You can get my book, my collection of short stories called the Language of Skeptics. There we go. The Sixes and Eights is an RPG about a post-apocalyptic demon hunters, but using demon weapons, kind of like Elric meets Supernatural. And that should be out this summer. And of course, you can find me here at all the Zero Means You're Dead, Hit the Dice, and next week I will be here hosting. So thank you all much.
And I happen to believe, and I've watched every single episode of Hit the Dice, that the Sixes and Eights one had one of the funniest moments in the history of the show in it. If you haven't seen that one episode, go check it out because it's really, really entertaining. It had some characters in it. It's really good. All right, Tiffany?
You can find me at outsiderpublishing.com. All our books are on Amazon. Currently, paperback is there, but I'm pulling my paperbacks out probably before June 10th. But they will be all still available on Kindle Unlimited. We just had a release beginning of this month. It's Legends of Camelot. And our next book will be out at the end of June, and it's a women's right anthology.
Nice. Everybody go check out The Elements if you haven't. One of my favorite books of all time. I love that book.
Thank you. Book 2 will be out December 6th.
Yes, I'm super excited for the second one. I was just going to say that. So, yes, I'm really excited to read that. All right, everybody. And I'm Joe Compton. This is Going In Now. If this is your first time here, congratulations. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for being here. You can always find us at Going In Now. We are in the process of creating a monster awesome website so that you have a one-stop shop for everything we do. We are working on that currently. In the meantime, you can just come here to youtube.com/@goindynow, or you can go to facebook.com/goindynow. We're also on Instagram. I'm on X, but I'm not on X anymore, really, honestly. Blue Sky is where you would find most of what we talk about when we talk about stuff there. We do got a great week of programming ahead. We have first time for everything. Bria Rose will be the guest for Juliet Rose. So two roses don't make a right. There you go, Bob. I made a joke for you. All right. And then we have Saving a Seat, myself and Brian Tan. We're going to be talking about some indie films. He exposed me to a movie I can't believe I never had seen before, which was Hanging with the Homeboys. And you'll hear us talk about that. And then I have a great interview with, if you haven't read my review of this movie, I have a review up on the blog on freshbutterpopcorn.com. Is Greek Mothers Never Die. And I had an opportunity to sit down with the director of the film and talk about this movie and how she created it and everything like that. And also, although I don't have the graphic with me and couldn't find it in time for the show, but Trope or Not to Trope will be also this week on Thursday night. And that'll be a great show as well. Forced proximity is the debate that's going to happen on Thursday night. So everybody check that out. That's going to be an awesome show with the one and only A.F. Stewart. That's it for us, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And it's always time to go in now. We'll see you again soon. Bye. Thanks, everybody. That was awesome.
That's great. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Fun times. Always.
Yeah, thanks, folks.
Ben, you're welcome to make it as many times in a row as you'd like. I love having you. Thank you so much for being here, man. And Rob, thank you for jumping in. I really appreciate it. And
keep me updated with the schedule. If you need spots, let me know, and I'll let you know if I got them.
1,000%.
Same.
You all will be on my thought list for when the fall happens. So for sure.
You too, Anita, and you too, Sean. Let me know. Tiffany, me and you have already talked.
Yep.
I got like 2 stories I need to get through, and then we're gonna talk about trying to get something over there. I'd like to get something over there with you.
I'll send you email because we're plotting out our next year's anthology. So all the anthologies for the rest of this year is going up on the site this week, so everybody can start submitting if they have stories for them. But I'll reach out with you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Joe, if you end up doing that show about like to write another culture perspective or not, I absolutely would love to be on that one.
I think Sean and I are agreed that we're going to put it on the agenda for the fall. I think.
Yes, and yes, and yes.
Hit me up with that.
We haven't done one in probably 2 years. It's about time.
So save me a spot. Like my next book coming out has a lot of indigenous myth and legend,
awesome.
but specifically the MC is not Native because I am not Native. Therefore, I cannot write that perspective, and I put a lot of thought into that.
Nice.
So like I have opinions, and we'll be happy to share them.
Awesome. Yeah. We'll get you in there for sure, and we'll get Rob in there, and I'll bring Brian in there as well, and have that'll be a fun show for sure. Tiffany, I'll see you in a few days.
Yes, I will see you Thursday.
Yeah. Did you get my message about the trope or not?
Yeah. I think we're gonna change. I think we should change it. What do you think? You think that's?
Yeah, I think we kind of heavily loaded the romance in the front too much.
Yeah, I think the fantasy one would be where I would lean if that's okay with you.
The magical artifact.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, I'll take that. I will take that.
Okay. All right. We just signed Sean up for June's show.
All right. Cool. We're in. All right, everybody. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for being here, and we'll see you again soon.
Okay.
All right, bye, guys.
Take it easy.